Hello and welcome back to the Best Mocks of the Month, the show where we take a look at the best builds made by you. This month we had a record number of submissions and also probably the highest quality level of mocks that I've ever seen after doing this series for over a year now. That's all to say, the competition is pretty steep, so let's get right into it. First with some D&D habitats by a Brick Dreamer. Now you may actually recognize some of these builds because he actually makes videos about these minifig habitats. It's probably what he's best known for, and I think you could probably tell why. His builds are highly detailed, but also clean and not overcrowded, if that makes any sense. Here we have his last 3 habitats that he made for the entire D&D series. I absolutely love the minifigure posing that he's done for Strahd. The crossed leg design is super clever, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone else do that before. But my favorite of these has got to be the Tasha the Witch Queen habitat. The simple but well-detailed witch's workshop is just fantastic, and I love the sand green color that he's used for the walls. It's just such an underrated color. Anyways, I would recommend you all go check out his full videos for these builds that will be linked in the description, along with all the other artists featured today. Next, we've got a super fun minifigure showcase vignette by Castlemania. He's made this beautifully simple little vignette of a cobbled path and a forest. To this, he's added a bunch of different minifigures to appease any LEGO Castle fan out there. I love the whole concept of this build a ton, and my favorite is probably this one with the Eagle Knight. Again, it's just such a great idea for a build, even though it's not the most complicated mock of all time. Please go check him out on Instagram, linked below. Next up, we have a medieval lighthouse by SirBlakeBricks. He has made a lovely white and dark blue lighthouse castle for the Dragon Knights, and I have to say, I'm jealous. The rockwork of this build is masterfully done, and it just fits together perfectly as the base for this castle. Obviously, the lighthouse itself is also really well done. The walls are fairly plain compared to a lot of the ones that we see nowadays, but the masonry brick here and there help it from looking too flat. The only thing that I think he could do to make this look even better would be to fully furnish out the interior space. It's a pretty tight space to make an interior, but I think he could do something cool. Please go check out Sir Blake on Instagram to see all his other awesome castle builds. Next up, we have a Rohirrim vs. Orc scene by Alex. He's made a Rohirrim fortress wall with some cavalry charging against the Uruk-hai. Unfortunately, we don't have a nice wide shot of the build, but I wanted to include this because the concept here is just really strong. My favorite detail is probably these 2 orcs that are attempting to scale these spiked wooden walls. He's made great use of these rounded brown pieces, but I would have loved to see some tan cone pieces on top of them to really sell that sharpened wood look. Either way, this is a super sick build, and I'd love to see you expand this out in the future. Next up, we've got the Green Dragon Bakery by Fafnir Design. I'm gonna be real with you, I can just tell that the pictures of this mock do not do it justice at all. This is one that I would kill to have in my shelf. Dark green is such a classy looking LEGO color, and this build is just plain gorgeous. The heavy stone foundation bottom floor is framed wonderfully by this dark gray stonework design from the medieval blacksmith. And the second floor looks even better. It has such a pretty pattern with the Tudor wooden beams all around it, and the use of studs near the bottom of the second floor just looks so nice. I was originally actually going to have this one be the last build of the video, but I want the most amount of people possible to be able to see this. It's just way too good. The roof of this bakery might just be my favorite part. The ornate dragon-like designs on each side of the roof are just lovely, and the sand green tiles used for the roof complement the darker shade of green so well. Seriously, this mock makes me a little sad, to be honest, because it is on Rebrickable, but at almost 10,000 pieces, I don't think I'll ever get the courage to source all of those. But God, I really want to. If you're braver than me, I'd recommend checking out Fafnir's mock on Rebrickable and consider buying the instructions. It'll no doubt take you a while and a lot of money, but by the looks of it, it might be worth it. Now, continuing with the killer peasant scenes, we have this alt build for the medieval town square by Southernbricks. I love what he's done with the parts from the medieval town square here. I believe he was inspired by the old Mill Village raid set from 2011, but his version is obviously a lot nicer. The white and brown farm building is probably my favorite of the bunch, but it's just one small part of this really stellar looking scene. Sometimes mocks can get a little lost. Like, a lot of times I feel like we get a great idea for a build, but then as we're building it, it kind of spirals out of control, and the overall scene just looks messy. Southernbricks, in my opinion, has really avoided that here. The whole mock feels like it was made with each building in mind. The gate and wall that connect the two towers in the background I think really helps sell the idea that this is a real village and we're just seeing a snapshot of it. And to me, that's what makes a mock stand out. Like, if I can picture a stop motion scene taking place in your build, then I think you've done your job well. Please go check out his other work on Instagram, linked below. Next up, I want to show you this super cool idea for a new Lord of the Rings set by Atomic Brick. LEGO over the past couple of years has been making these vignette sets with a popular quote on the front. You've most likely seen what I'm talking about before if you're into LEGO. So anyways, what Atomic Brick has done is he's made one for The Hobbit. He's taken the scene where Smaug is hunting for Bilbo, and he's made it into a vignette. We've got a massive brick-built head of Smaug that just looks so cool. I love how he's done the eye here, and the overall sculpting of the head was just done great for this scale. His head is just crashed into a pile of gold that is ever so slightly spilling around the weight of his jaw. And then to the side of this, we have Bilbo, who's attempting to hide behind a dwarven statue. And then of course we have the quote on the side. Obviously you have to imagine this being printed here. This is such a cool idea, so thank you to Atomic Brick for entering. Go check him out on YouTube, linked below. Next up, let's take a look at a mock from a much better fantasy series. This is Darkseid Iron Throne Room from House of the Dragon. I featured this build like a month or so ago while it was still being worked on, and man, I gotta say, he absolutely nailed the show look here. The path of swords leading up to the throne is pretty much the best I've ever seen. Obviously this isn't going for the book accurate look, which I'm okay with. His Iron Throne looks exactly like what I'd imagine LEGO would do if they ever made an official set. But ignoring the actual throne, the rest of the Red Keep just looks fantastic. The simple stonework pattern looks great, and of course those dragon banners are so sick. He's got the accurate amount of legs as well, which I love to see. Oh, and obviously I almost forgot to mention, his Daemon custom minifigure looks sweet, and I love that he's used the Gryffindor sword for Dark Sister. This is easily one of my favorite mocks I've seen this year, so please go check out Darkseid linked below. Next up, we've got a medieval lumber yard by, I apologize if I get this wrong, Nosokih. I don't think I've ever seen anyone make a lumber-centric medieval mock before, so I'm all for this build. His medieval crane here looks unbelievably good for how small it is, and the weight counterbalance that he's made with a net piece and some stones is just the attention to detail that I love to see. Also, this minifigure's expression right here is great. Then we have the other half of the build, which is just a little house made with some dark green and dark brown accents. These two colors are not very common at all, so I always love to see builds made with them. He's offset the walls slightly as well, which helps the wooden support beams stick out even more, which just looks great. This build is such a fun looking scene, and his minifigure staging is probably the best we've seen this whole video. Please go check him out on Reddit, where he's got a lot more about this mock that I'm sure you'll like to see. Next, we've got a Royal Knights Castle by Nick. I don't think I've ever seen someone make such a loving homage to the Royal Knights before. But I gotta admit, as much as I dislike the Royal Knights as like a castle faction, this is a work of art. No two towers in this build are the same, but it still maintains a fantastical fairy tale-esque design that I find really hard to dislike. The whitewashed walls are beautiful, and he's created a stonework pattern that I find really unique. He's used some rounded studs around the castle, and the round tower has an even more worn look to it. I'd like to imagine that the round tower here was built like years before, and the outer walls are all newer, and that's why the round tower has more texture and wear going on. In reality, it was just done like this because a round tower, you need to use a lot of smaller plates to get that effect, but either way, this build is beautiful, and I cannot wait to see what else you come up with in the future. Now, while some honorable mentions go by on screen, let's talk about how you can enter your mock to be in next month's video. All you have to do to enter is send an email of your mock to this address. Please attach the images of your mock directly to the email, as that maintains the best possible image quality. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately actually, we had so many good mocks that I just could not include them all and give them the time that they all deserve. But don't worry, our next video is going to be a huge, long best of the year video. So if you've entered a mock this year but it wasn't featured in one of my videos, it could show up in the next one. So please, if you have a mock that you're working on right now, please send it to me by the end of December to potentially be featured in the best of 2024 video coming in January. Keep making awesome mocks, and as always, thank you so much for watching.